Hello, welcome back to English with Alice. Right, let's get serious. Today, you are going to learn how to use the third conditional. This is my favorite conditional. Is it weird that I have a favorite conditional? I think it's very useful because it's to talk about things that didn't happen in the past and their imaginary results. We use it to talk about maybe regrets. If this hadn't happened, I wouldn't have done this. So it's a really useful one to learn. So if you're an intermediate English learner, this is for you. Let's look at the structure. If plus past perfect, that's the first clause. The second clause, would and have, and then the past participle. So what does that look like? Let's break it down. So the if clause, if and subject, had and past participle. If you don't know, the past participle is the third verb in the typical columns that you would learn verbs. So do, did, done. Done is your past participle. Read, read, read. Read is your past participle. Give, gave, given. Given, your past participle. So it's the third one in the textbook columns. If you had studied. Yeah, that's our first clause. Let's look now at the result clause. Here we need the subject, you, would, have, and again, the past participle. You would have passed the exam. When the verb is regular that ends in ed, it's exactly the same as the past simple. So past, past, the same. So this is how we form the third conditional. It's worth mentioning that these two clauses can be changed in order. So you can start with, you would have passed the exam if you had studied. Or, as this one reads, if you had studied, you would have passed the exam. So the order doesn't matter. The only difference is if you start with the if clause, you need a comma. But if you start with the result clause, no comma necessary. Okay, so the only way to really learn this is to practice. So now together we are going to write some examples. Okay, so this is the situation. Let's read the situation. Last week, you lost your passport at the airport and couldn't board the plane to go on holiday. Terrible situation. So let's rewrite the past with the third conditional. So let's start with the if clause. If you hadn't, here we need to make it a negative. If you hadn't lost your passport, comma, you would have boarded the plane. If you hadn't lost your passport, you would have boarded the plane. This didn't happen, right? This is imaginary. Or we could say, you would have boarded the plane if you hadn't lost your passport. Okay, let's do the second one. The second practice. So, last week you injured your neck in a car accident because you weren't wearing a seatbelt. Oh dear. So, let's write the third conditional for this example. You wouldn't have injured your neck if you had worn a seat belt. Okay. You wouldn't have injured your neck if you had worn a seatbelt. Here I've started with the results clause, so you wouldn't, negative, because really you did injure your neck if you had worn a seatbelt. This verb is interesting, isn't it? Wear, worn, worn. So to use clothes, yeah? This is the past participle of to wear, worn. Okay, how did you do? Let's try another example. Last week, you quickly paid the bill at a restaurant and later discovered the restaurant had overcharged you. So, third conditional. What does this look like? If you hadn't paid the bill so quickly, you would not have been overcharged. If you hadn't paid the bill so quickly, you wouldn't have been overcharged. Did you get that one? Okay, let's try the next one. If you want, you can pause the video and you can write your own answers and then play and see if they're the same. Some of these, there might be more than one answer. You can use different verbs, but the structure is what's important. Okay. Last week, you parked your car on the high street, but didn't see the no parking sign and received a fine, a parking fine. So, if you had seen the no parking sign, you wouldn't have received a fine. So we have our if clause with the comma. If you had seen the no parking sign, you wouldn't have received a fine. Very good. Okay, let's do another one. Last week, you didn't make an appointment with the dentist. And then you had terrible toothache. So let's do some imaginary results. If you had made an appointment with the dentist, you wouldn't have had toothache. If you had made an appointment with the dentist, you wouldn't have had toothache. Listen to the pronunciation of toothache, sorry. A-C-H-E, ache. So you might have a headache, stomach ache, toothache. It sounds like a K sound. Okay. Let's do one more just to consolidate your learning. So let's look at the scenario. Last week, you got soaked because you didn't take an umbrella when it was raining outside. Soaked, completely wet. This is a great word. So, if you had taken an umbrella, you wouldn't have got soaked. If you had taken an umbrella, you wouldn't have got soaked. Or remember, we can switch it. You wouldn't have got soaked if you had taken an umbrella. Okay, let's move on then to your challenge. So it's your turn now. I want you to think of a moment from your past that could have gone differently. And then I want you to write your sentence in the comments. So if I had blah blah blah, I would have blah blah blah. And remember, you can say if I hadn't or I wouldn't have, right? So you can change this to negative if you want. Well, I hope that was useful. The third conditional can be a little bit tricky, so keep practicing to master it. If you write your answers in the comments, I will correct them for you. Okay? See you next time on English with Alice. Goodbye now.